to thank everybody for attending this evening. Of course, this is a city meeting, so this is a PWE. And here this evening we have Kang Wen, we have Director Weatherford, we have Maria and Gary, who you all know. Clearly, we are all here as well as ambassadors of Woodland Heights. And so, for the sake of good order, Director Weatherford is going to say a few words before the city presentation starts. It would be optimum if people could hold their questions until the end of the city's presentation, and when doing so, if we could have the courtesy of taking turns, standing up, and when you stand up to ask a question, to state your name and which street you live on for the record, so for everybody's benefit. The other thing I'd like to mention as well is that we are recording this meeting for the benefit of the people who can't make it here. So within a couple of days, this entire meeting will be posted on the WHC website and then again on Nextdoor so everybody can see it. So for the people who are currently on holiday or that couldn't make it here this evening, they'll be able to watch and listen to the entire proceeding. So without much ado, I'd like to hand you over to Director Weatherford.
And who are you, please?
I am Phil T, the VP of Infrastructure for the WHCA.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Weatherford. I run basically traffic operations for the city of Houston. Bill mentioned who we were, but he failed to mention Councilmember Cisneros is here. I'd ask her to stand up, but she's got crutches, so we don't want her to do that. She's doing it anyway. What I wanted to talk about tonight is a little bit about the ordinance, how the program works, and why we do it the way we do, and then to dispel some rumors that are out there. You guys can look this up online. Article 15 of Chapter 45 of the City of Houston Code of Ordinances. It establishes the process by which this program is run. There are a few things that we've learned as time goes on. One of those is we try not to go back and make major changes to this ordinance, because when we do, council members will change things. And a perfect example of that is that the original ordinance that defined cut-through traffic as occurring on a street where the traffic volumes were more than 20% of what you would expect to see based on the number of houses on that street, and there were at least 750 cars a day on there. Last time we made a change to this, council said, well, why and? Let's make it or. So now pretty much every street in the city, by definition in this ordinance, Westheimer, Richmond, I-10, has cut-through traffic on it. So, like I said, we try not to go back. But as we've done this, we still follow the ordinance. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to develop a process that works. One of the things this talks about in here on the volume control program, which is what you all are part of, is the development of different plans. Early on in the plan, we put together 2 or 3 with the neighborhood traffic committee, come out, and then we get comments, well, I like this one, but I don't like it, and it'd be all over the place. What we learned from that was that it's better to come up with a plan that we think people will want, come out and do a meeting, take input in, and then look and see, okay, do we have consensus? Is everybody in general in favor of that? When I talk about consensus, what we look about is not 51% in favor, 49 against, or anything like that. We look at where there are devices at, we look at where the in favor are, where the opposed are. If we have what we believe is consensus and we have what we believe is a good plan, we move forward with it. If not, per the ordinance, and you follow it exactly as we do, since there's only one plan, we would go back and we'd say, okay, well, we denied the plan and the project's terminated. That wasn't the intent of the original one. So what we do is instead of doing the final action on that original plan, we go back and develop and work on another plan. And we try and work with the community to get a plan that will work overall for folks. So there was a lot of question about, well, it's a second meeting. We already had the second meeting. Why are we having another one? Well, we had a second meeting for the first plan. We went back, we're revising it, we're having a second meeting for that. One of the things that if we do go back and change, we'll change the title of the meeting from first meeting, second meeting, third meeting, to meeting A, B, and C. So that's why we're having this second meeting, because we didn't think that it made sense to come out and develop 2 or 3 plans, present them all to you guys, say, well, what do you like about this one? Because what we found is we don't get consensus from that. We get people who like this plan and people who like that plan, and no plan really gets consensus. So hopefully that explains some of that. That there's also something in here, because there's a rumor out there that Councilmember Cisneros told me she didn't like the plan, and for us to go back and revisit it. Not true. What the ordinance actually says is it requires for staff to coordinate with city council officers. Notice of the progress of the request under the article shall be given to each district council member whose district includes any part of the neighborhood area and to any other city council member who so requests, including but not limited to notice of each public meeting, concept plan, traffic study, and proposed placement of any devices. We provided all that to her. The meeting I had with her was to tell her that we had sat down and looked at the results, and that we did not feel that we had consensus along Bailey. We told her that it was our intent to go back and revisit with the neighborhood traffic committee. Okay, she did not instruct the department to go back. She has actually tried to stay as neutral as humanly possible. Part of this is, some of y'all know her, know the history, but simple fact of the matter, she has a divided household. Her husband's not particularly in favor of the plan. Her mother says she likes it. So she can either take a side and side with her husband and have mom unhappy, or she can side with mom and have husband unhappy. She's staying neutral. Okay? So, basically, as we've gone through, we've been required to communicate with her about what we're doing. We've talked to her about it, but it's up to the department. You'll also notice in here that I've seen a lot of things about, well, the people voted on this, and so why are we doing this again? If you look through here, you won't find anything about a vote. It says we'll accept comments. We do accept the comments. We look at the comments. We look at every single one of them. We actually go through on a map and we color code them. Green for they like it, red for they don't, on the map, and see where they're at and everything. And we take that into consideration when we're looking at these. So that's kind of how this process works. Assuming that we get through this and that we actually find that we've got consensus for a program, then we'll go forward and we'll install them. When we install them, we'll let them sit out there for at least 90 days, 3 months. We'll come back and we'll conduct a study again, and we'll see whether or not they work, whether or not they have the impact. Once we've done that, we'll come back and we'll hold what I hope will be a single third meeting, although we have gone back and done multiple third meetings in the past. But we'll hold a third meeting where we present what we've done, the results of the study, and ask for comments back again. Assuming we get the comments back and that in general people are overall happy, we move forward to council for approval. If they don't, if they come back and people are generally not happy, we don't just terminate the program. We go back into that second meeting mode. We say, okay, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? What do we need to try next? It's an iterative program where we try and work with the community as much as possible. Okay, so that's basically, I wanted to talk about these. I wanted to talk about the fact that there's been nobody here other than my staff who's had any input into decisions that have been made by the city. And realistically, all they did was they provided me the comments, the maps, the plans, and that type of thing. So, I've seen a lot of different emails saying that all kinds of different things. That's what's actually happened. I'd like for us to move forward, and I'd also like to make 2 other observations for y'all. First, I want to remind everybody, y'all live here together. Some of the emails I've seen, y'all need to think about what's going to happen 2-3 years from now. Y'all you're going to live here for years to come. Try and be nice to each other. Be kind to each other. Part of the reason we do this here iterative thing, is to try and get it where everybody is, nobody's ever going to be perfectly happy. I'll guarantee you that there's one person, looks like her right here. She doesn't want anything. Okay, maybe she does. There's somebody else who thinks whatever we do. But in general, what we're looking for is to have people overall, okay, we can live with this, and that this is kind of what we want. That's why we do the iterative process. As long as we try and work with each other, as long as we keep an open mind, as long as we talk with each other, we can do that. But when we start calling each other names in the emails, which some of them I've seen, we're really not where we need to be. The other thing that I want to remind everybody is where staff will talk about this, that they'll give everybody that wants to a chance to talk. Today there is actually recording, but generally we don't record it, and it's the neighborhood association that's recording it. We don't record it for a reason. We want written comments, because if we try and keep writing stuff down and everything, we'll get something wrong. We'll have somebody's name wrong or anything else. We want the written comments. That you've got the forms over there, the maps there, you can turn them in today. You can sit here, they'll give you email addresses, not mine this time. We'll give you email addresses. There'll be different ways for you to sit here and do this. That the information is actually available online, so if you know somebody that wasn't here, you can make sure that they get it. And we want those back in writing, because that's our record. And if she sits here and she tells me, this is an absolutely fabulous idea, and I can't wait for you to do it, I can't document that. I don't have any actual documentation. If she sends me the form that says, yeah, she favors it for these reasons, we've got that record, we can track it back. The other thing that we'll find, I don't know, are you two related? No. Who's related? Okay, the two of you, one of you votes yes and one of you votes no. We have that happen. So it gives us some heads up, okay, you know, do we paint this house green or do we paint it red? So we need to have those written comments back so we can document them. So that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to talk about, is why we do things in general what the ordinance says. Y'all can go through and read this. I'll tell you that right now, the only place that we're not really in compliance with the ordinance, because we've tried to work with y'all, we're kind of within the spirit of it, is when you look at the definitions, it talks about the neighborhood traffic committee. Who all's been part of the neighborhood traffic committee? One, two, okay. You kind of get the idea. Neighborhood traffic committee means a committee consisting of not more than 5 members. So basically, that's where you'll find that we're not in compliance. We've had a lot of conversations with people about the second meeting, and they understand where we're at on that, and those arguments have pretty much gone away. But feel free, download it. You don't even have to download it. Just read it online. Don't print it. Save it free. But it's available to you all online. You can take a look at it. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Kang, or to Gary. You're going to talk? You're on your own.
Hello, my name is Gary Drayback, and this is Maria Garcia. We're the staff for the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. So if you called or emailed, or if anybody made applications, this is the staff for the entire city. We have about 60 projects that are ongoing right now, with a waiting list of about 160 more projects on a waiting list for neighborhoods similar to yours, who said they have some problems going on in their neighborhood. They come in and go through the program. I think this was already talked about 3 times. This is a new slide that we created today because of some of the other meetings we had. What we're here to do is we're just here to present the information on the program and the process in an effort just to educate the neighborhood. So first of all, congratulations on a great turnout that's here. I know the neighborhood's been working hard trying to get everybody involved. It's really frustrating when we send out a 3,000 meeting notice and do a meeting and we get 10 people there. And we go through this whole process, so this is great just to see a large turnout. But once again, we're neutral on this. We're just trying to help facilitate the neighborhood through the meeting and educate you on the findings that we have, so you and your neighbors can make an informed decision on what you want in your neighborhood, because this is your neighborhood. You live here. Actually, I live in this neighborhood too, but I live on White Oak, so I can't get anything on that street because it's not part of the program. So you guys can make an informed decision. So what we're going to do, I think, was also, we mentioned, please hold all the questions till the end. Wait till you're called on, state your name and address. That just kind of help us when we're looking at the map, kind of know where people are coming from. Don't interrupt others when they're talking. And, you know, it's okay, we can agree to disagree, but like Jeff said, we're neighbors. We're all going to have to live with each other, and I don't want people throwing tomatoes at me when I'm at Kroger's or something because I'm associated with this. So let's just be kind to everybody.
Actually, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so we wanted to kind of go through the process. Application, the neighborhood submitted an application. This was way back in 2011. The program was kind of on hold for a while, funding issues. Then it started back up. So we didn't get to this neighborhood, so we started doing the first public meeting, which was in January of 2015. How many people came to that first public meeting? So how many people got the notice about the public meeting? So, okay. Because what we did is we sent out a meeting notice to every property within the study area. And we tie into HCAD to grab that information, so we send it all out with the meeting notice for it. And that first public meeting was basically just an information, this is what the program can or can't do. We don't want to have unrealistic expectations of people want us to do. Some neighborhoods come in, make us a gated community, close all these streets, like, no, we can't do that. So after that meeting, that's where we developed the traffic committee. So representatives from that meeting volunteered to work with us to be on the neighborhood, Jeff talked about the neighborhood traffic committee. And then we did our traffic studies. Then we took that information and we gave it to the neighborhood committee. And we said, here's a snapshot that's going on in your neighborhood. Realize this is just sort of a quick snapshot to start seeing what the traffic patterns are going on. And you guys live in your neighborhood, but here we have some documented information. So let's start developing a plan. So we started with the committee to doing a plan, and they came up with a plan that was a little more restrictive. And they came in and sat down with us, and we said we took out some of those devices. And I always tell everybody, this is trying to find the balancing act. You know, how restrictive do you want this thing? Because it's your neighborhood. It's going to be inconvenient to you guys also living in the neighborhood. So that's why we backed out some of the devices, and we said it's your job to make sure the neighborhood is informed of this project, and so they know what they're voting on, or not what they're voting on, but know what the project is and how it's going to impact them. So that's we did the traffic study. We developed the concept plan. And then we did the second public meeting where we presented. How many people came to the second public meeting? Okay, good turnout. So that's we'll call it the second public meeting that we had. That was February of this year. And typically we would have gone on, after that one we did a 14-day comment period. And so I have a map. So at that, just like we're doing now, there's a comment period for you to do. And so we took the results of that one. So this is the results of the comment period that we had. As you can tell, it's kind of iffy, kind of all over the place. So we said, and then the neighborhood said, well, let's go back and kind of look at this plan again, educate everybody. And then we had another neighborhood traffic committee, and that's where the committee grew. I think 55 people attended the meeting that we had here, but I think there were 75 people who signed up to be on the neighborhood traffic committee. So we way exceeded our maximum number of 5 for that. But we said, hey, that's okay. I'd rather have more people, get people involved, than people not be involved in the process. So that's why we're back here for this meeting tonight. This is our second public meeting that we have. And it's to present the plan that we modified, more importantly, answer questions, and then this does start our 14-day comment period again. So just like we did after the other public meeting, where a 14-day comment period, it starts it all again. And we're going to take everybody's comments and we're going to map them. Maria has the wonderful task of doing them.
And if you've already emailed, gone online, or handed in some kind of comment already prior to this meeting, I don't need another one.
So good point, because everybody got some phone calls. Hey, I sent it in before the meeting. Is that okay? That's fine. We just try to get everything in 14 days after this meeting, so if you did it beforehand. And please, if you have a divided household, don't make us choose. So we don't want to be the problems for that. But this is starting it. Now, if you haven't signed in, we have a sign-in sheet here. Please do it after the meeting. That's just for us to do a head count that's going on here. We'll keep these out. And if you brought your comment cards with you, you can leave them with us tonight. If not, the agenda that we handed out, it has it here on the bottom. There's also a website. You can go online and submit it. So there's 3 different things to do here. And again, if your neighbors aren't here, take this with them, show it to them, tell them, go online and submit their comments.
Also, I understand that there's a problem on the online link. There's test 1, 2, and 3. Just pick 2. That'll be for this second public meeting. So if there's any other complications, just put that in. That should work. Just make sure you put Woodland Heights and the meeting date, today's date.
And an address, so we'll map
I know.
it. It's literally what we'll do is we'll map it, and it's gotten a little complicated. It's usually not just for or against. We'll read every comment, and Maria has set up a gem system where she writes down every comment. So sometimes it says, hey, I'm for this if you put them on my street, or I'm for this if you don't put them on my street. So we read all those, and we try to create a couple other categories, because not everything fits just in those little boxes that are there. So this is where we are, second public meeting. We're going to do the 14-day comment period. Then we just literally give this information to Jeff, and then he'll sit down with the director and probably the council office and say, this is what the neighborhood wants. We have very limited resources, so we're trying to spend them most wisely. Trust me, if your neighborhood doesn't want it, we will take our resources. We got, I said, 160 neighborhoods on a waiting list. Those neighborhoods aren't happy because it's probably going to be 5 to 8 years before we get to them, because we're so backlogged, and you can see that one project can take so long. So once again, we're not here trying to push this thing. So, but if it's approved, they say, hey, move forward with the construction of it. Jeff went over some of this. Then we're going to come in and construct it. We're calling it a temporary testing. We're calling it a temporary testing. We just go and construct it. Even if it's the speed cushions, we usually do them in rubber bolt down, but sometimes we're starting now to do asphalt ones, but we'll build them, and if it doesn't work, we can take those all up. This neighborhood, we might want to just do the rubber ones, so we can just pull them all up. And any other devices, it's easily to pick up and move and to modify. Because we've done this before where the neighborhood said, we don't like these things. One neighborhood, we had some traffic islands, they didn't like those, take those up and fit in some speed cushions. So we're at the stage where we're trying to make this thing still not a permanent construction, where it easily can be modified. And then what we're going to do, as Jeff talked about, after we build this thing, we're going to come in and do another traffic study. You guys are in a process that we're going through a long, lengthy process, and Jeff talked about the ordinance being changed. They've changed the ordinance again for a neighborhood who just wants speed humps. If a neighborhood just wants speed humps, they don't get the luxury of having before and after traffic counts. And so it's basically, we're just going to guess to see if it works. So you guys are going through the long process that we can come in and we're going to do an after count to see was it successful? More importantly, make sure it didn't shift the problem over to an adjacent street, because that's what we do not want to occur. This is trying to calm and improve the quality of life for the entire neighborhood, not just one particular street. So the goal of this program is not to push a problem over to another street. We used to have a speed hump program where we looked at just one street, and anybody on the street can make a request, and we didn't go beyond that study area. And that's what occurred, and that's why we folded it all in here. One street would get it, and then the other street would get the burden of it. They would have to apply to it. But that's not going to occur in this one, because we're going to look holistically at the entire neighborhood. So that's what the traffic counts are going to do. You're going to see the black tubes go down across the street again. Please don't try to skew the data, run over them, cut them. If they get vandalized all the time, just call us so we can go back out and reconnect the tubes. And then we're going to do a third public meeting. We'll send a meeting notice out to everybody again. It's important to note that we not only send it to the residents in the study area, but we send it to people half a mile per the ordinance beyond the study area. So a lot of neighborhoods we work at are like, why did you send this to me? I'm not even in this neighborhood. Because the ordinance says we have to go beyond the study area. So we do the third public meeting. Once again, 14-day comment period following it. And then, unlike all the other speed humps throughout the city, the council will have to have a final vote on this. So this is a very involved public process that we've created for our traffic calming devices. When I talked about the study area, we go from thoroughfare to thoroughfare, so we encompass Pecor, Houston, White Oak, and Studewood. So that's the mailing list. But then when we have these devices, Maria did a polygon to go half a mile beyond the speed humps that are on the perimeters of this. So everybody within the study area should have received a meeting notice. This was the plan for those who didn't come to the second public meeting that we presented to the neighborhood. There was traffic circles and some speed cushions. And then after, when we had our neighborhood traffic committee of 55 people, that we did that, we come up with a modified plan where we said, well, let's look at the results and hear from people. So we took away the cushions and a circle that were on Bayland. We're getting good buy-in from people on Bayland for that. So that's the plan that was presented, and then we modified it, and then the plan that we have now. Oh, that was the comments that we received from that plan that I showed you guys earlier. So then we modified it. So this is the plan that we're talking about tonight, where we just took away its speed cushions, and now the neighbor's wanting to try to do some traffic circles just at a couple of these locations that are in over here, along with some speed humps. You guys already have a couple existing speed humps. Actually, one of them we call them a speed cushion that was built. Ooh, I'm surprised it's still lasting like an 80. One of our first ones like an 85, 86 or something like that. You'll notice that one right there on Watson is a little bit different because it's called a flat top speed hump. Early on when we had our speed hump program, we were trying to do those on higher volume streets. It's not supposed to slow people down. We don't build those anymore. But I think you're the only neighborhood that has those flat top speed humps in there, because we're hoping we can try to do them all throughout. And you have a couple of the existing speed humps over there. Now those came in when people applied under the old speed hump program. Just the people on that street made the application, or one person on that street made the application. We studied just that one segment. The petition was just the people who fronted that street, nobody else in the neighborhood. So that's the difference with what we're trying to do now is we're doing the entire neighborhood. But I just want to let you know why you have those existing speed humps and flat top speed humps in your neighborhood. Now what we use now is no longer those asphalt speed humps that go basically from curb to curb. The fire department they weren't really big fans of those because it slowed their apparatus down, so we switched over to doing speed cushions. So if you hear me say speed hump, it's the same thing as the speed cushion that we're doing now, and I have a picture of it to show you what it is. So this is the plan we're talking about. This was the traffic counts that was done a while back when we looked at it, and there were some additional traffic counts that were done. So what it did is we said, let's look at these and identify some problem streets. And once again, with in mind that if you do something on one street, it's going to have a domino effect and go to another street. And I think there's a new ordinance that's done when I'm working with the neighborhood where they're just wanting speed humps. They're trying to streamline it, and they say you don't even have to do some speed studies anymore. So we're still working, so we had this information, so we're working with it on that. We'll go to the next one. And this is what we always do is kind of combine it with where we have the stop signs. So these are all the stop signs in the neighborhood. Before the question comes up, everybody says, put more stop signs out here. We wish we could. It would make our job a lot easier if the engineers would sign off on stop signs on every intersection. But stop signs are traffic right-of-way control devices, and they have different engineering rules that they have to follow to determine who has the right-of-way. It's not to slow people down. And studies shown if you install more stop signs where they're not warranted, accidents actually increase because people think they have the right-of-way and they slide through the stop sign or they don't stop. But this is when we come in and do our traffic counts and do our placements. A lot of times when Maria and I are out there in neighborhoods and trying to figure out where the speed humps need to go, a lot of times, because we hear from people just fly through the stop sign. So we'll basically treat it like it's going to be a speed hump. People are going to slow down through this intersection and then go on. So it's not uncommon for us to put them in between stop signs, so even speed humps we try to keep 300 to 400 feet away from a stop sign on that. So this is where I talked about, kind of hard picture, the speed cushions that we use. Has anybody driven over the speed cushions in the city already? Okay, so what they are, they're not a continuous one that goes all the way across like you guys have in a couple of these streets here. The fire department didn't like those because it slowed their apparatus down a little bit. It's 6.5 feet wide, slide ramps on the side, their apparatus is a little wider wheelbase and it's heavier, and so they can straddle it. So when we start placing those, we're going to be the first cushion in the middle and then work their way out. So if a fire truck or an ambulance needs to get through your neighborhood, they're going to go right down the middle of the street and kind of straddle these cushions. We hear mixed things. People say, oh yeah, a car can try to straddle it. If you try to straddle it in a car, you have a little narrow wheelbase. Your one wheel is going to hit the center of the cushion. The other one may go in between the gap that's there right now. So it's the tool that we have that the fire department approves. This plan did go to the fire department, just like any plan that we ever present to the neighborhood. It has to be approved by the fire department before we take it public. So they were okay with the plan that we have. Now, we're starting to use these, like I said, these are bolt-in-place speed cushions. It's been work come up. Sometimes in some neighborhoods, we're discovering they have asphalt streets. We got some asphalt streets in this neighborhood. If it's high volume, these things will come up. So we're not sure if we're going to go in with this or with an asphalt speed cushion. We have them on 19th off of Shepherd, 19th, 18th or 19th Street off Shepherd, 18th. That 18-wheelers, we keep replacing these. So we're going back with an asphalt speed cushion over there because, I mean, with the high volume and the 18-wheelers, they keep coming undone. So this is what it is. And when you guys are talking about some traffic circles, now this is important for people to realize, this is what we build. We come in, this is our temporary device that we will come in and build for the neighborhood to mimic it. You guys can test it, and if you go, I don't like this thing, we will come and take it up. The city will pay for this. The city will pay for this. To make this thing permanent later on, it's going to be the neighborhood's responsibility to turn this into permanent construction. Because I'm sure you guys aren't going to want to see this thing every day when you come home. We worked with one neighborhood where they had some entrance islands, little chicane type things, and they lived with this for about a year or two. Then they raised the funds to reconstruct it, make it permanent construction. The question's going to come up, how much is it going to cost? We don't really know. It's kind of like saying, hey, build me a house. How much is it going to cost? Well, how big of a house do you want? How elaborate do you want it? If you want to make this a plantable island that's there, irrigation, then you have to excavate the base of there and add sprinkler systems to it, which would increase the cost. That neighborhood chose just to put in some curbing that there. I don't know if I put a picture of it in here. Might have taken it out. No. They kind of put in some xeriscaping that's in there, some knockout roses and some boulders, some rocks that are in there. So it's not a lot of high maintenance and it's saved on their cost. So this is the plan that we're talking about. When we see speed cushions throughout your neighborhood, this is what you'll get. If you wanted to, if they go through with the traffic circles, this is what you'll get. And then we'll test those. And then if it goes, it's approved for permanent construction, we will leave the speed cushions out. And these will stay out until the neighborhood will then come and do it. We're at a good time right now. We still have the matching grant program, right? So
I don't, that is still technically on the books. I don't know there's funds left.
we've only used one contract. I mean, one of these. It should still be there. They created the neighborhood that I was talking about when they constructed, got rid of theirs. The council member created a matching grant program that says the city will pay for half the construction if the neighborhood pays for half of it. So hopefully we'll look to see, hopefully it'll still be on the books that's there. That the neighborhood would have to only come up with 50% of it, and the city will come up with 50% of it.
Well, what he said was that he says there's $80,000 left.
Okay. And it saves some money for the neighborhood also because we kind of have an on-call contractor who do that, so you don't have to pay the engineering, design fees, and the contractor to come out and do it. So just us having the contractor in place, it saves the neighborhood quite a bit of money. So this is what I just talked about. We will pay for the temporary ones. Neighborhood's responsible for the permanent construction. We'll oversee the construction. And then we try to come back and review the projects every 5 years. We've got so many of these projects, I can't guarantee you we're going to come back and review these 5 years because, like I said, we have 160 projects hounding us to kind of start working with them. Okay. This is just the deadline for a comment. We put it 2 weeks out from today. You can email it to us here, go to the website that's there, or you can mail it in to us hard copy. And this presentation will also be available. I'm sure Phil will give it out hand it out to everybody. We can put it on our website to do that. So that's what we just wanted to present, the plan, the concept. Once again, the city is neutral on this. The neighborhood just said, hey, we're having a problem going on here. Once again, the most difficult task that we have is to trying to find that balance with people in the neighborhood. I always tell everybody this is a volunteer inconvenience. We don't have a magic wand that just says, poof, everybody's going to behave, drive the speed limit, be courteous to everybody that's out there. You're not going to cut through this neighborhood if you don't live there. So unfortunately, it's an inconvenience that the neighborhood will have to live with in order to address the problem. And that's you as a neighborhood, and that's where our goal is, just to educate you all so you can make an informed decision, is sort of balance that out. Is this too much of a nuisance or is it not? Before the question comes up, residential speed in the neighborhood is 30 miles an hour. So, you know, we can't, this program doesn't allow us to reduce the speed limit that's there. So when we look at this, it's 30 miles an hour. Especially in some of these streets where they're narrow streets and you're walking your dog or your kid, that can seem kind of high. So that's what we're basing this all on, speed, you know, being 30 miles an hour in there. So once again, this starts the 14-day comment period. Now we'll just open up for questions and answers. Now's a great time because you have Jeff who can answer things beyond this, because everybody wants us to fix everything in the neighborhood.
I want to make one more comment about the email address. That email address is important. I get several hundred emails a day. Well, when I left the office, I had 292 unread emails. If you send it to me, I might get to it and forward it to them before the deadline. I might not. So make sure you send it there and not to me.
And once again, don't have to send it duplicates. You don't have to send it. I had Maria's email address and my email address, and then this one, this is sort of the host email address. We would get people sending it to both. We're office right next door to each other. We know what's going on, so no need to duplicate this. We'll just toss it. But literally what we do with all the comments is Maria has a painstaking task of printing them all off and mapping them all and presenting it to her. So we'll open up to questions. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Pedro Ayala-Segorti. I live in Norhill, the 4,000 block of Pine Ridge. I'm a delegate to the Greater Heights Super Neighborhood Council. And I'm sure y'all had these meetings, but I didn't hear anything about this until I got it on the Nextdoor app a few weeks ago. I'm looking at the map here, and it all looks fine for Woodland Heights. But the one street that I have a problem with is Pecor, which is right over here. And Pecor, I'm on Norhill, which is just on the other side of Pecor. And Pecor feeds into Heights proper, Sunset Heights, West Heights, East Heights, and not even talking about the neighborhoods on the other side of 45. So my question is how Pecor became a through street and how Woodland Heights is able to claim Pecor as one of their streets. Because Pecor is the main thoroughfare that serves all of Heights, and put in 4 speed bumps because people in Woodland Heights want it. I don't think it's fair to the rest of us that's in the Heights area.
Let me give a little bit of history of Pecor. And Woodland Heights is not, they didn't come in and claim and take over that territory. Pecor for years, when we had just our speed hunt program, it said, we have people speeding down here. What can you do? We could never do anything because it was considered a major thoroughfare.
It is.
Well, it is a thoroughfare. Let me finish. And so what we did in the past is we came in, and I think, you allowed the narrowing, the striping of it.
Well, actually what it is that when you go further to the west, it's classified as a major thoroughfare. Pecor, and what we're talking about is we're talking about classification of the major thoroughfare freeway plan. It's like a document that's put together by the Planning and Development Department, approved by the Planning Commission, and then ultimately approved by the council. On there, it defines what the major roadways are. That, as you head to the west, there's no question, when it changes names and everything, it's definitely major thoroughfare. As you come through here, for years it was defined as a major collector. About 2 years ago, they came up with a new classification called minor collector. It had to do with the volumes on those roadways. And basically Pecor, where it's certainly the major route in between these neighborhoods and everything, it really doesn't carry the amount of traffic that you see on most major collectors. So the Planning Commission downgraded it to a minor collector. At the same time that was happening, the ordinance was changed to allow, where we don't allow traffic calming devices on major thoroughfares, principal thoroughfares, or major collectors. With this new classification, it was determined that they could have traffic calming devices. So in the past, because PCOR was classified as a major collector, it never could have devices. This time when we came through, because even though it's a boundary street, it's actually eligible, and when we collected the data, basically, it showed that there is a speeding problem on PCOR. Now, we asked for the comments that basically they went in as a result of that study. We would like for you to make that comment. And that if you got, and that's part of the reason why the ordinance is that we're required to send the notices of these meetings to people within a half mile of the device. And that's probably why some of it came out. Again, we grabbed things off of the county appraisal district's map and get all the addresses there. But we would encourage you and your neighbors to make that comment if you're not in favor. But that's how it ends up that now you can have them on it.
I'm looking at PCOR and I'm looking at Uslit, and you're telling me that PCOR is the same type of street as Uslit? There's no comparison. There's probably 10 times the amount of traffic that goes up and down PCOR than goes down Uslit, and you're treating it as the same type of street. That isn't just right. And like I said, there's a lot of neighborhoods that use PCOR other than the people here in Woodland Heights.
Okay, so just for another thing, I think when I was looking at the major thoroughfare plan, Watson is also, I think, was classified as a minor collector also. So for the planning department, you can go to the planning department's website and look at their hierarchy major thoroughfare map, and it'll show you what's considered, what their classification of each street is. Yes.
Yes, sir. I'm Tim Lank. I'm at 415 PCOR, and I just want to dispel any notion that Woodland Heights went out and claimed PCOR and is doing this for their own benefit. The people on PCOR are very active in this meeting. I've got 2 little kids. All my neighbors have kids. It's the same type of street as everyone else's street. There's as many houses face PCOR as they face any other street. It's a residential street just like any of the other ones, and the speeding problem on P4 was extreme. There were several accidents right outside my house. An 18-wheeler flipped over and went to my neighbor's porch, and it caught on fire. And these are because people really pick up speed going down P4, and this is a serious safety issue on P4. It's not Woodland Heights trying to disrupt people to make, dampen traffic. It's a serious safety issue.
My name is Wendy Smith Butler. I live in the 600 block of Bayland, and I had a couple of questions. Director Weatherford, you were saying consensus. How do you define consensus?
If you look at the map, you'll see that there's a lot of red along the
Okay, so the reds and greens is your consensus. So if we make a comment, that is part of the consensus.
Yes.
Okay, so that wasn't clear to me. I don't know if others had that
Basically,
question.
we take all of the comments and we basically color code them, like I said.
Okay,
That's
so
why
it's
you
the
saw
color
these.
coding process that is
And
our
every-
voting, so to say.
Well, we're looking for patterns, and like what we saw is that we saw that, yeah, there you go. You see here that as you come along through here, you got some reds here, reds through here, red. You see a lot more red kind of through there. We got green as well, no
Right.
question.
Right.
But it wasn't clear to us that the people on PCOR, or not PCOR.
So it's not like
were-
50-50 or 60-40 or whatever, you're just looking at it and you see a not a
Right.
clear,
That, and if you look at where, you don't have that superimposed with the devices on.
No.
In a lot of cases, you'll find that those reds were right there where the devices.
okay. My next question that I had was, the traffic circles that you're talking about going in, what kind of signage would announce that? I mean, are there like a whole bunch of signs that are come on each side of those traffic circles, which, on Bayland, for example, would be detrimental, in my opinion?
There's a single sign on each approach, notifies it, and then there's signs actually that go up that circle.
So
Basically,
one in each
one
direction?
diamond sign, yeah.
In each direction. Okay. And one last quick question. What is Bayland classified as? Is it a minor collector? Because it is a local street
It's
on
just a
par
local
with
street.
any of the other streets in our neighborhood, even though it's wider and curved and all that stuff. Okay.
It's not uncommon for, in the neighborhood to have some streets that are wide curb and gutters, some are narrow, open ditches.
Was it ever considered a more major street? I mean, I've lived on Bayland for 23 years, 4 kids. Mine haven't been hit by a car. We've got lights in the heights every year. We've got 1,000 trick-or-treaters. I knew what I was getting into.
No, it's never been. It's never been on the maps as
At big collector.
Right. Most of the minor collectors we have are roadways that were classified as something else in the past, that were a higher classification.
Okay.
Like P-Corp, where you got down.
I mean, they thought enough of it to run the bus down it for years too, but.
Let me point out also, again, on the mapping, that there's not a set percentage. The ordinance doesn't say you have to have 51% of all residents who turn in a comment card. It doesn't specify that at all. We really wish it kind of would, because it'd make our life a little bit easier. It just says, collect the comments and make the decision based on that. That's why we're going through so much effort to try to educate and get everybody involved, so you can submit some comments back here. Let me, you.
Well, my name's Marie, and I live on Peakwood. First, you could change the ordinance because you've been changing it all along. So,
She said we could change the ordinance because we've been changing it all along. Are you talking about the comment period, the voting
well,
of it?
no, you made references to how many changes have been to the ordinance, and you said, I wish that we had that in the ordinance to
He
begin
wishes
with.
I don't.
Yeah, we just went through the ordinance changes last time, and legal voted that out also. They didn't put that in there.
Why did they vote that out? What was the rationale?
I
Well,
wasn't
I say
right.
that because in all my records, every city, including Austin, has clear definition of percentage of households that have to have a signature, a representation of the house that is affected by the program. Every city but Houston. And I want to know why.
We don't have zoning, and it's been
Well, I
voted
know,
against
it's
all the
Cowboys
time.
City.
I'd like that too.
And that we just don't. And what I say is that that's a valid comment. When you submit your comments, submit
Well,
them.
I have. But, also, there's 6,951 cars that go down P-Court. Where are those cars gonna go? We're gonna put those speed humps. They're gonna go to North Hill. They're gonna go to Virginia. They're gonna slow down.
Or they might stay on the freeway.
No, they're not. And
Okay,
that's
once again, let's go back to our
valid.
rules. One person talking at a time.
Also, the National Association of City Transportation Officials state, and this is in their official guidelines, vertical traffic calming devices are intended to slow traffic speeds on low volume, low speed roads. P-Corp is not that. It's not a low volume. And everything else that I've read always refers to, any other text out of any other state refers to not using calming devices on high volume streets. They refer to using passive devices, such as one-way street. You know, make the turn, one turn only. I know that's not what we're here for, but that's okay.
Okay, I'll summarize it. She was talking about P-Corp shouldn't get it because her research indicates that it should be for, these should just be for low volume streets, and this has too high of volume. So, yes, sir. I'll get, let's try to keep our, either one, he was standing up. Let's try to keep these down because we're limited time that's here, and we want to try to get through as many questions as possible so everybody can be informed.
I'm right here on Redan. And there's a couple issues I have.
Excuse me,
First
what's
one
your
is
name?
that
Sir, could you state your name?
Roger Moxley, 608 Redan Street. First one is that these are existing, and I have no idea why this, somebody has to explain to me why this one, and this one is needed. You have a little bump right here already that people slow down for, and you can only go, you're slowing down about 10 miles an hour to go over this. Then you're slowing down about 10 miles an hour going over this. And then what's not on here, what people don't show, is there is a stop sign right here.
To the next slide that shows the stop signs.
All right.
And one more.
Watson right there.
One more stop, one more.
Yeah, there's more stop signs. There's one here, and there's one right here. Okay? So nobody's going more than 2 blocks before they run over a speed bump or a stop sign. There's no way that, I mean, I don't understand how people could why we would want to gun up to whatever speed. It's insane. So I think this, if you put it back to where the speed bumps are, I think this is unbelievable overkill. All right. So now we have, because you're only going 15 miles an hour. Now, if we have a stop sign here and a stop sign here, the only place that we don't have a stop sign that slows traffic down for 2 blocks is right there. Right there. That's one. If we put a stop sign right here and right here, that solves everything. Nobody can go more than 2 blocks without stopping.
It's not part of this program. Can't do it.
Okay, go back to our rules. One person talking at a time.
So
Okay,
that's-
sir,
that's-
you pointed out that you thought this was overkill.
Right.
Let's try to get through so many of these questions we have.
Just
people
a
holding
couple
their
other
hands.
things here. Last night, we had a lot of rain, and on Pecor, it was flooded. And what happened was, because I sat there and watched it, I tried to get out, I couldn't get out. All the cars from Pecor went down here and went down Redan. I had, within maybe 10 minutes, 100 cars going down Redan. Now what's going to happen when you put these things up on Pecor, which is a major thoroughfare, is that they're just going to go right down my street exactly the way they did last time. So you're taking a major thoroughfare and you're running it into a subdivision. The third thing is that there's no houses here. There's no houses here. Why have speed bumps there? I do not understand that either.
There's a school there, dude.
There's a school down here. There's a school. Put the speed bump, and you got speed bumps for them.
Okay, we're trying to get through as many as we can. Okay, everybody calm back down, let's go try to answer these questions. And let's try to get sort of informational questions. We understand that everybody's polarized on this one way or the other. The whole point of this meeting is to educate everybody of what's going on. Everybody has an opinion on this.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got a question, that's what we want to hear. We want the comments on the cards that if, you know, if I understand exactly what you're saying, please make those comments in writing. That, you know, we want to get that, because there are some people that agree with you, there are some people that are not. We're trying to get everybody's comments in. If you got questions, that's what we want to hear. We don't want to argue back and forth. And also, where we haven't got a time limit on these folks, that other people commenting back and forth, just let them have their say. Let them ask their question, let them have their say, and then we'll move on.
Don't make Maria pull out her timer, because she will. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Paul Campbell, I'm 923 Pecor. I've lived here for 22 years. I've seen a massive increase in traffic on all the streets, okay? Pecor is not meant to be a thoroughfare. It was supposed to end, originally designed to end at Mishaw. The trolleys would come up, go around that little triangle and head back down. It was meant to be a residential street. Is there any way, Kathy Whitmire did change it to where it turns into 11. 11, you'll notice that the houses don't face there like Pecor. Is there any way at all we could think of maybe separating, stopping Pecor again, to, like it used to be, the way they designed it?
I can't imagine anybody going back to closing the street.
The other question I have is that all the other streets, the speed bumps seem to be where the houses face the front. They don't face the Pecor. We're coming back now and going into the speed bump area. Now, it won't be on the side of our house. Understand what I'm sorry.
We do the speed humps whether they're front facing or side facing. We put them. So you're
is
driving.
it any more dangerous when you're actually facing the speed hump than when you're street?
Well, we hear
your house,
from people is even if your driveway, if you back out of there, if there's a speed hump to slow people down. We've heard in the past it gives them a little bit of gap, so people are slowing down, so it makes it a little safer for them to come out of their driveway. It's a lot of areas where we have where they're front-facing driveways where we put those, but we also do them where they're side lots, where their house faces one street, but they're going on the house street.
The last time I went back at that, basically what I see happening is traffic is going to be reduced. It's a pain in the neck. all these people from the apartments are just cutting through the highway or getting our work. This is gonna be a pain in the butt, so it's probably gonna slow down traffic in all of Woodland Heights, not just these streets, you know.
Those are good.
And it won't work.
You want to say something different?
This guy right here, you passed by a couple times, he stood up.
He said he's hand up for 10 minutes.
All right, two quick ones. Last
Draw
meeting,
straw.
I made, right, was it mentioned at the last meeting, the existing speed bumps on Watson would be removed? So I thought I understood that in the last meeting. That the existing ones will be removed and these new ones will be put in. That was-
No, what I presented to the fire departments was those to remain.
Okay, so next question, is the follow-on traffic study gonna measure the same exact streets? Is it gonna be a duplicate study?
Yes, if we duplicate, and I can imagine we'll probably do additional counts also, especially the gentleman was concerned about it shifting over to his street. Make that known, because we want to make sure that it doesn't shift over. So you'll probably see more traffic.
I'm on Woodland Street, and I'd like to, that's why I'm asking, because it's a street that I think is gonna increase.
You'll probably see more traffic counts than the previous one. Just
So all the same streets at least will be counted?
Yes,
And that
sir.
will be public, is that gonna be public data?
yes. All of our traffic counts is on Jim's system. You can go there, click on it, and get all the information.
Commissioner over the back.
7,731 Usner. I'm right there on the corner of Watson and Usner. That roundabout would be basically in my back driveway, and I'm totally in support of it. I've lived in that house for 6 years. I've lost 3 stop signs within 2 weeks. I've had a car come up to basically my front porch. I've had 2 cars hit my pine trees at high speed on Watson. These cars, as they come off of Watson and take a right on a Usner, they're taking that turn at 30, 40 miles an hour. I've seen tow trucks come around that corner trying to haul ass to White Oak. And, I've got kids, we've got neighbors that have kids with all toddlers, and I mean, it's the most unsafe corner. And I mean, I picked to live there because I like the neighborhood. However, I think that speed bump added and that roundabout, I mean, it's very needed. It's very needed. I've witnessed accidents. I can't tell you how many times I've put my kid down at night and I have to go outside while I'm reading books to him because we have accidents and you gotta go check and make sure people are okay. So it's needed. It's needed.
Understood. And again, we want you to make a comment, but really what we'd like to do is instead of have everybody, basically give their opinion, we really want to do questions.
That raised more hands. Thanks a lot. So we'll start over here.
Let me just follow up. I'm Mike Connor. I live in the 500 block of Woodland. Following up on Zach's question, how much change is significant to you guys when you do that follow-up traffic count? I too am on Woodland. I'm pretty convinced that if we put speed humps on Bateman, it will divert traffic. We've got experience with that. They put a stop sign at Watson and Euclid a while back. Well, guess what? I drive on Euclid a whole lot more than I used to because I can get on and off Watson. It's a nice improvement to get on and off Watson, but I know it increased traffic for those people. We've got narrow streets. The demographics and the population is what it is. We've got people parking on both sides of the streets. Lots of little kiddos live on our street within several blocks, either direction. How much change is enough change to make adjustments if we get through this first experimental period you do traffic?
In general, that basically we look at the number of houses that are on that street and we look at what we would expect for those houses to generate as number of trips, and that becomes the baseline. Now, most streets will have a few more cars than that, so what we generally will look for is that, like, let's say that right now, you guys have got 10% more on your street than we would normally expect. Kind of the threshold we look at for changes is 20% more than what we expect. So I can't tell you offhand what the traffic volumes on your street are, but let's say that you've got 75 houses on your street. We normally expect for that to generate 10 trips a day, so that's 750 trips we would expect on that street. If, probably realistically, what you're really going to find on that street is probably somewhere around 800. But if you sat there and we found that we had 900 cars, we we'd say, gee, we put way too much, we shifted way too much traffic there. So again, not a hard and fast, but in general, that 20% above what we would expect to see. We would say that traffic is shifting.
But that's a different story than what you've been putting out here. You know, you're making a statement, or a bunch of people have here, that you're looking for changes in the traffic count because of these devices. That's not at all what you just said.
Now, what you said is
But what you're representing is completely different than what was represented.
You want me to answer the question, or you want to
Yeah,
argue?
please.
Okay.
But-
The places we're looking for volume changes are people that are cutting through on Watson, people who are cutting through from the other neighborhoods. What we don't want to do is we don't want to, let's say that Bayland has cut-through traffic on it. We don't want that traffic that's using it as a cut-through to move to Woodland. We want for it to go back out on Studevant or Studewood. We want it to go on these other roads and that type of thing. We're not trying to divert traffic elsewhere in the neighborhood. That's why we look at the neighborhood as a whole. That's why we do these studies. Why Gary said that where we put out the data initially, where we basically got the feedback from, we'll probably have out more counts when we do the after study to see whether or not places like Redan are picking up extra traffic, whether or not we're seeing more traffic than we would expect to normally see there. So that's what we're looking for. What we don't want to do is we don't want to have, let's say, 1,200 cars a day on Bayland, just to the east of Michaud. And then afterwards, we've got 900 cars a day on Bayland, but on Woodland, where we had 600 cars, now then suddenly we got 1,000 cars. That's what we're not trying to do. We're trying to look at the shifts within the neighborhood. We want for people who are using the neighborhood streets, cutting through, not to use them. I mean, when you look at Watson, and again, forgotten where the guy was who talked about, I think it might have been back there on the purple shirt, was talking about the number over there on Watson. I agree that you're trying to control speeds. Yeah, that there are an awful lot of devices. And I didn't get into this with Gary, what I assumed was that the neighborhood as such was trying to keep people that are getting off at Taylor from coming up through the neighborhood and trying to deter them from doing so. That's why I would guess that there are that many devices coupled with, you're right, there are stop signs at Euclid and, yeah. So that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep the people out of the neighborhood. Now, what I'm saying is not in conflict with that. What we're saying is we don't want to move the traffic from Bayland onto Woodland or some other street. And that's what we're going to measure and try and determine.
Okay.
Now,
Okay, let's,
cut through.
we have about probably 30 minutes max left of this room before we get kicked out.
This has always been part of the cut-through program. It'll address speeds as well, but this neighborhood has always been in the cut-through program, the volume reduction program.
Let me get his back here, and then I'll get yours over there.
Say something.
No, wait your turn.
Let's do the order.
What do you do?
Him, her, and then you.
My name's Jeremy Hyder.
Could you please speak up?
My name's Jeremy Hyder. I live on 901 people, which unfortunately is not responding to me. I have two quick action questions. I've seen a lot of maps, but I'm having trouble finding ones that actually show the exact address of the right to the street. For example, my house is 911 P4, and I can't tell the street on the front of my house or my neighbor's house or the house now. Is there a resource somewhere for that?
We haven't gotten that too much. His question is, do we know exactly where these devices are going to go? We haven't gotten into that much detail yet for it, because this is sort of a schematic approach. But I'll tell you, before we go out and they construct it, Ray and I go out there and we literally spray paint where it's going to go, and we let the neighborhood know. Go out and look to see this is where the devices are going to go. It's a good question. We typically don't like to put them right in front of somebody's homes. They will not go in front of somebody's driveways. We try to keep them in between property lines. In reality is we try to put them under street lights just for visibility that's there. But you'll see them marked, and then it gives them time to say, no, I don't like this, can you move it here? Unfortunately, they have to go in front of somebody's house. Your neighbor may say, fine, put it in front of my house if you don't want it in front of their house. That occurs. But we want to try to get, before the contractor goes out and puts things down on the ground, we'll mark it, and you'll see an orange paint that says SH.
Okay, and my second question was, and this is the first I've heard of this, that some of the cushions may end up being asphalt rather than rubber. I was on the understanding that rubber ones were being used because of the temporary asphalt is not because I think that was temporary. So what time
Well, the question is about the difference between asphalt, and I would guess probably in this neighborhood, we're gonna probably go with the speed cushion, the bolt-in-place ones.
It's hard to say, but in general, because of the fact the asphalt goes down and we'll figure out within a few months, it's fairly easy to scrape it off without damaging the underlying pavement.
The city will repair. We're not gonna come up and mess the street up. The speed cushions, the rubber ones, they bolt down with anchors, it's just little anchor posts. The reason we're going to asphalt, because, I mean, if you have so many 18-wheelers or cars hitting it, especially if it's on an asphalt street, the asphalt isn't as strong as the concrete, so it comes up. But if it's a controversial neighborhood, and we think we may have some tweaks, we'll probably go look at doing the cushions until we think we got it down just right, and then we have to repair it, we'll go back with the asphalt that's there. Yes, ma'am. And then I'll get you over there, ma'am.
My name is Carrie Snyder, and I live in the 20-acre block of Beecham. I have two questions to do with traffic volumes. One, say you put these in and then you do the traffic studies and nothing changes. If it hasn't reduced traffic or calmed traffic in the way we think it will, what is the next step? Does the city then pay for traffic calming devices or different options that a neighbor would have to pony up for? And my second question, with regard to in the FAQ, there was a discussion about in the future, say 4 or 5 years from now, when the I-10, I-45 interchange is closed, for various reasons, I'm sure lots remember last summer when it was closed for one weekend and Watson was like a nightmare with semi trucks going up and down. This might not be enough for that, so what are other options that the neighborhood and or city would pursue with TxDOT to make our neighborhood not be a nightmare if I-45, I-10 is closed for 5 years?
Okay, answering the first question. As I said before, this is kind of an iterative process. That what we're gonna do is, assuming that based on the comments we get here tonight, over the next 2 weeks, that we feel that, hey, we've got consensus and that we're gonna move forward with this. And again, that's an assumption, but assuming we do, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna put in these devices. 3 months from now, we're going to collect data again, we're gonna look at it, we're gonna present it back to the community. Now, if the community thinks this worked and they're happy, that's fine. If they think, boy, we just moved the problem here or there, we're gonna go back. Where's your flow chart?
Flow chart, one more.
I mean, basically what we'll do is we'll jump from back here, back to here again. And we will go back and revise the plan, come back out, say, hey, this is kind of what we found, this is how we think we're gonna cure it, and we'll continue working with it. That only once we get to that third meeting, we get the comments back and everybody says, hey, look, we're good with this, or hey, we're tired of it all, rip them all out. One of the two. We're gonna keep with this. And, you know, like I said, one thing I wish we'd done was had a meeting A and meeting B and meeting C, because that we don't often have a second, third public meeting, but we have had before in the past where we've gone back, revised the plan, done some more presentations, gone back up with some more devices, taken out some, and then gone back and had another meeting again. So, it's an iterative process. We're basically with you until you either are happy or you say, hey, go away. As a consensus group, some of y'all might be ready to say go away now. Oh, yeah, 45 and I-10, okay? TxDOT's gonna come through, they're gonna do a lot of work. We generally try and work with them on trying to come up with viable detours that, there were some errors made earlier this year. We're working through those with them to make sure they don't do that type of thing again. One thing that I would say is that we're going to push for them to do is we'll actually take some of these streets and change them to through trucks, and we'll ask for them to actually pay for some officers to do some enforcement, try and keep the trucks out of the neighborhood. Simple fact of the matter is, when that's done, most people are going to try and find some way through, not involving neighborhood streets that have got a gazillion speed cushions and stuff on them. There are going to be some people that don't get through. There's very, very little we can do about that other than the fact that we know it'll be a limited time. What we will try and do is try and work with TxDOT to keep trucks out of there. The only way really to do that enforcement. Okay, we have about 15 minutes before we have to give up the room, and I think they're trying to heat us out of this room already. So if you have questions, please, we want to just answer those questions that you have. So if you have a question, not just an opinion on this, please ask those questions right now.
My name is Teresa Hernandez, and I live at 9 Flint Highland. I have been on Highland since 1966, and I have seen many, many changes to this area, this neighborhood. And part of our problem of the traffic is coming off of the freeways, just like the young lady is saying. When they're working on the freeways, they make them detour, so they come in through our neighborhood. As far as people in the neighborhood, someone was talking about number of cars on the neighborhood. There's a lot of people that park in front of my house, and they're not in my house, they're in the neighbors' houses. So everybody is always parking on the streets, and they park on both sides of the street. If you live in the neighborhood and you have a driveway, why not use your driveway?
What's the question?
Was that everyone is complaining about the traffic, well, the traffic is coming in from the freeway. So who's gonna take care of the people coming in?
That was one of the things the committee, when we worked with,
So they're being worked on.
those were things that we addressed in the committee. The committee said it's a lot of, from the freeway traffic being redirected. So once again, questions on the process, let's try to get those answered as quickly as possible. Red shirt. Sorry, we'll get to you.
Jeanette Young, I live on the 1100 block of Baylor, and at the last meeting there was some discussion about adding calming devices in the 1100 block streets, instead of Baylor and other streets. Was that considered for the revised plan, the revised plan?
When we kind of try to wrap that one up, it was take the existing plan and get rid of some of the devices.
Not adding them.
Right. Yeah. You see how hard it is just to get through what we have now. But once again, remember, you guys are fortunate that you're going through this long process that we're going to do after studies. Most of the neighborhoods we're doing, if we come here, we did this, we're gone. Yes, sir.
My name is Aaron Titus, and I live at 800 Burn, corner of Burn and Watson. I have one question, just for sake of clarity for Mr. Weatherford. You said earlier that you didn't feel like there was consensus on Bailey, but did not specify any other streets. For the sake of clarity, did you feel there was consensus on the other streets?
In general, that around the other devices, we thought that people were generally okay. If you look at Watson, for instance, there are a couple of reds on there, but there tends to be more green kind of in that area. That in general, I would say that my comments basically to staff were where I did not feel that there was really consensus was primarily on Bailey. So I didn't tell them to go back and look at other streets. Let me also point out this map that you're seeing. It's going to be totally revised with this new comment period. So once again, we're not going to go back and, we'll look at it so we think it changed, but it's the new comment period that goes on from this point forward. Yes, ma'am. I think it's
Megan Fremantle, and I live at 516 Balin. Concerning the two traffic circles on Balin, I didn't go and look at the other existing one, but there are manhole covers in the center of those proposed traffic circles. So if they were to fly, how would a permanent structure take in those manhole covers?
Manhole covers would have to be adjusted so they'd be at whatever the finished elevation is and could still be accessed. You could still plan around them and such. Essentially what it does is that it raises the cost of doing a permanent improvement.
Thank you.
How much does that go up? About $600 roughly.
And to whom? Or would it be split, however it's split?
Well, and that still remains to be seen. That in general, permanent improvements are the responsibility of the neighborhood. That there is some funding left, as Mr. Nguyen said, in the matching grant program, which is basically, what's the split on it? 50-50 split on the neighborhood. So let's say that you guys did move forward and it was $600 and you went for the matching grant. That basically neighborhood do 300, we do 300.
Who pays for maintenance and repair?
The neighborhood does.
So if somebody runs into one of these circles, then we would have to replace it or repair it.
That if there are signs, the again, you've got some little arrows that go on in the median to kind of direct people around. If the signs are knocked down, the city will pay for it. If the plants are damaged, that's assuming you guys went with plants instead of hardscape, then the neighborhood would generally be responsible for replacing them or any irrigation system. You do the hardscape, realistically, in most cases, the only real damage that's going to be there is knock down a sign.
What benefit is a traffic circle versus a speed bump? In terms of traffic calming?
Some people, I think when we were working with the neighborhood too, they said maybe we'll have to do as many speed cushions if we do some traffic circles and intersections. It makes people pay attention, especially if you've got a major connector street that's going in there. They're gonna slow people down, not really be as big of a nuisance as the speed cushion is going to be, especially when you have problem intersections. I mean, it's going to.
They'll slow people down. Generally, most of us, not everybody, because we've all seen people do it. Most of us, when we see a speed cushion or a speed hump, we slow way down. That actually you can drive over a speed cushion doing 15 to 20 miles an hour and not harm your car. Your back might be another thing, but in your car will be all right. But most of us are slowing down to about 10 miles an hour. These these circles, most people are going to tend to do about 20 miles an hour through them.
In the temporary layout, would they also trim the oak tree branches out of that radius?
So that people can get around it?
The trucks and the other things using Balin?
It'll be looked at.
Well, everything's staying in the right of way, so the trees can be.
Generally, we're trying not to
Okay.
get people's trees in their front
We had a
yards.
bunch of
If
people
there's
have their
something
hands
that's
up.
low hanging over the roadway today, then it can be trimmed regardless, whether we have the circle there or not. We're gonna look and see whether or not it's something that needs to be trimmed.
Okay, before they escape, go ahead to the exit door.
Okay, hi, I'm Michelle O'Donnell. I live at 518 Woodland Street. So, for the question earlier, when you said you were talking about a 20% change, are you talking about what we were told in our what the neighborhood association mailed us? It called it a perceivable increase as far as the traffic on that gets sort of self-reroutes to a side street from a street with devices. So we were just told it was a perceivable increase.
Well, and again, I mean, that there's variations. Like I said, that in general, you got 75 houses. We're gonna guess there's 750 trips gonna be generated by those. It might be 700, it might be 800. So, and even on a given day, it might be 700 on Monday and 800 on Tuesday. So what we're looking for is we're looking for that baseline that we're guessing plus the 20%. That if, you know, chances are that if we'd already seen the 20%, we would have already been doing something on there. So we're kind of looking to see whether or not there's a change there. But like I said, you guys are asking for a number. We're saying the 20%. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that if we find that the traffic volumes are 17%, that we're going to say, oh, well, never mind. It's going to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. You're looking for a number, and that's kind of the number we use.
I just wanted to clarify that. And my question then, based on that answer, is what's the remedy? Is it that you place traffic calming devices on the side street, or you remove them from the initial placement?
Yes. It could be either one.
It could be either one.
That basically, let's say we look at a street we thought we had speeding on. Let's call it Street A. And we put in these devices, and before we put them in, people were doing 31 miles an hour. After we put them in general, they're still doing 31 miles an hour. But now we've increased the volumes there. We may revisit and say, okay, we need to do, these weren't working there. We need to take them off. I can't give you a definitive answer. It's a case-by-case basis. We will work with the neighborhood traffic committee and the community as a whole to try and find a solution. Like I said, this is an iterative process. Where that gives you a real nice, hey, this is the steps, and through there, and we're out and done. In fact, it doesn't work that way. We're not going to go as long as we feel like the community as a whole still thinks there's improvements needed to happen. We're going to continue with this program. Now, I know that there's going to be somebody or another. Fang here is not going to be happy no matter what I do, because I'm going to make him go to more meetings. But we know that there are going to be a certain number of people that aren't going to be satisfied one way or the other. But in general, we're looking for, does the community feel like we've solved the problem. If the community as a whole doesn't feel like it's been solved, we're gonna go back to the concept plan stage, and maybe we take some things out, or maybe we put some stuff in, it may be a combination thereof.
Okay, and I'm curious to know from your experiences in other neighborhoods, all four of the representatives here from the planning, from Public Works, when you have had traffic circles placed on the streets, and, you know, right now, currently, there are aren't really painted crosswalks on Bayland. I'm talking about the circles on Bayland in particular. On other streets like that, when you've had placements like that before, have there been additional, I'm concerned about the line of vision that drivers would have for children crossing the street. I mean, does it make it safer, or does it not?
Generally, the slower speeds make it safer. What we don't allow is we don't allow people to sit here and cover this thing with thick vegetation so people can't go over it. We allow them to put stuff in that's fairly low. You can maybe put in one tree. But basically, there's got to be a gap between the tops of the bushes and the tree canopy where it'll be eventually, so people can see through. And they need to be able to see kids. I mean, the average kid that's going to be crossing by himself is going to be taller than these bushes and still be able to see. So, in general, these things are not intended to block the view. They're intended to slow people down as they go around them.
But when they're going around them,
Everything stays
this way, their line of vision would be that way, right?
Well, they can see over the top.
I can't imagine it's not going to be heavy landscaping.
It hasn't been an issue.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, Tyson Greer, I live at 3411 Northwood in between Omar and Merrill. First, thanks all of us experts that volunteer for the NTM. Maybe we could get into the 5-year backlog you guys have. But to the, just a general comment, I think I've lived here for 6 years. I walk my 2 young sons every day, no matter how hot or rainy it is, and I would tell you that it's dangerous to walk around in the neighborhood. I did not sign up when I moved here to have my kids run over by a car, so I'm sorry. I would tell you, with that data, it seems like this is all based off science, and you guys know what you're doing. So I would ask, are there any case studies or real-life examples where you guys could help maybe inform some of the skeptics that this stuff actually works and it does actually generate real data to actually, permeate change throughout the neighborhood? It is a process. I understand that's a feedback loop, but it seems like it's a no-brainer. You guys know what you're doing. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Data, there's a variety of data that's out there that shows you reduce the speed, you're increasing the safety that's out there, and any devices you put in the roadways, the speed cushions, it's going to.
And we have case studies locally. This is not the first project we've done.
Yeah. So, okay, you were about to say. Okay. Let's try to keep this down. We've got 2 more minutes.
My name is Jared Webb, 404 Highwood. Been there about 2 years, and the 30 mile an hour speed limit has always baffled me. Is it even possible? And if so, how is it possible to reduce it?
That's the reason I brought that up earlier. It's a state law that says unless marked at 30 miles an hour. You want to answer that one?
I'll take this one. Okay. Basically, the state has what are called prima facie speed limits. On local streets, such as neighborhood streets, it is set at 30 miles an hour. There are options by which the city can possibly do this. You have to do a traffic study for every single block, and then you have to put signs up. By the time you end up doing it in a neighborhood like this, if we wanted to reduce the speed limits on these streets, it probably costs us $100,000 in signs. The city, and when we start doing it one place, we've got to extend it. We just don't have the funding to do that, to go through and study it and put those signs up. Now, what I'll tell you the city is looking to do, and to keep in mind, and I'm sure the council members can get it out to the neighborhood and everything, we're looking to pursue a change in the state law. We agree with you. We think 30 miles an hour is too high. What we want to do is we've actually got 3 proposals. The one we actually want is we want to take on local streets that are not posted otherwise in all cities across Texas, make the speed limit 25 miles an hour. There's safety information that says that, hey, it's safer to do the 25 miles an hour. Most of the streets where we've got, that we basically thoroughfares and such, they're 30 miles an hour today. We've ended up putting signs up on them to remind people it's 35 miles an hour, or 30 miles an hour, because they want to do 35 and 40 miles an hour. The places we don't have them are on the local neighborhood streets. The second option we've given them is, okay, you know what? If you don't want to do them on all streets, let's do it on residential streets in an urban environment. So basically, any street that's got 75% or more residential properties, which could be apartments or could be single family, in a city, in an urban district, basically will have a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. The third option we've come up with, is we're working with some other communities who are also interested in it, is that if they don't want to do this all over the state, fine. Set the speed limit, on prima facie speed limit on local streets in cities with a population over 2 million at 25 miles an hour. That means Houston. If they don't want to do it in Lubbock, fine, don't. Give us the authority for us to do it. That way we don't have to go in and put signs up all over the place. It becomes something that the police department can enforce. So that's probably going to move forward. We've heard from Fort Worth already asking us if we're going to pursue it. They're interested in pursuing it. They're talking to Dallas. I'm going to be talking to Austin and San Antonio in the coming weeks. We're going to push this forward in the next legislature. When it comes time, I'm sure you letting your members of the, both your members of the House and your senator know, hey, you support this, will go a long way towards that.
I would like to add that when the mayor asked the council for items to be considered for the legislative agenda, that is the item I submitted as well. It's been well documented in research that just lowering the speed limit just 5 miles from 30 to 25 doubles your chance of surviving a pedestrian car accident. I visited with the legislative liaison for the city last week, and as Jeff said, they're already reaching out to see if there are other cities, maybe Dallas, who would like to partner with us on this, or smaller cities want to be part of it. So that's another angle to work on. There's not enough speed cushions in the possible to slow traffic. 30 miles an hour is too fast in a residential area.
Or enough police to enforce it. Or enough police to enforce it.
Before we go further, before people escape, if you want to leave, you can leave your comments with us also. We'll hold on to those. No. If you want to leave your comments with us. Yes, sir, back there.
Yeah. Mark Brandich, I'm in 714 P4. One of the things I've noticed is that when the traffic comes up Watson and comes across P4 because 10 is shut down, there's never traffic on Main. It's an underused resource. And I was wondering if there's some way that we could kind of push traffic more that way, get it back on Main, which is a 4-lane road, not residential, right? I don't know exactly how to do that, but that's what it was built for, right?
Yeah, I mean, Main is more of a thoroughfare. It'd be interesting to see if this is going to do any shift over there to it. Could be just because it's a funky intersection right over there. But
It's not easily accessible, and where a lot of the traffic from the neighborhoods coming through is they're coming off the interchange, Taylor. I mean, it tends to draw people at once.
okay. You and then.
This man has been for 15 years.
William Maslin, 420 Bayland. I wanted to clarify, can this plan after this meeting be changed and implemented without another public meeting? Or do we have to implement this or nothing without another public meeting? That is, could things be removed from this plan and then you implement it without holding another public comment period? Or are we commenting on this or nothing or another public meeting?
In general, we can make minor changes based on the comments we get. So it's within the realm of possibility for us to say, you know, we got a bunch of comments said that we needed a speed hump here between Reagan and Northwood on Bayland, let's say. And we could sit here and say, well, we don't really consider that a big substantial change. We'll go ahead and we'll approve that. In general, though, if we get comments back that are like, boy, we really don't want to do this or anything, part of it is, like I said, we look at where the comments are coming from. The other part is, that if we really start making big changes, we're probably gonna wanna go back through another meeting. I know you don't wanna hear that, but, and trust me, we don't wanna come do another meeting. But, the idea is about working to build a consensus with the neighborhood, so, most likely, if we find that we're not getting consensus with this, we will come back again and do this.
Okay, let me get his, and then I'll go yours, and then go yours. Yes.
I'm Maureen Hackington at 2 Bailey. I have two quick questions. Y'all keep saying that you want to look at the neighborhood as a whole to, not exclude this area or that area, but look at the whole neighborhood. So my first question, and let me disclaim, I have no children at either school, but Travis seems to get the bulk of the calming devices, and Hogg seems to get nothing. So to me, that just is an inequity, and I don't understand that. That's the first question. Is there a reason why Hogg isn't getting any devices?
We've looked at the traffic counts, and it didn't seem to have it when we had the last meeting. I mean, one of the teachers lived in the neighborhood, and she's like, why don't you put them around this school too? If I had my way, I would put them around every school, just for school safety, safety's sake.
It's a safety issue.
But when we were looking at it, where's our traffic count? Where am I?
And there aren't any counts to work on it. So if you look at where the traffic counts were done, there aren't any in that section from Esplanade up to middle school. And we do, I live on Malin, I've seen multiple accidents at that corner. And so maybe in the second study, maybe one of you can count along Moorhill. That's a suggestion.
And what I would really like everybody to do, especially the residents on that street, we talked about the comments, submit comments and say, you overlooked this street, we think that you need them on this street. It could be that if it's all green, everybody says they want them on that street, then we will come in and do that.
Yeah, it's not because I live on Balin, it's not because I live on a street near this school or anything like that. It's just looking at two schools in this area and one receiving attention and one not.
Yeah, I was just surprised because we had 670, 366, and 514. I had expected those numbers to be a lot higher because of the school, but I think people drop off and pick up a little bit further from the school.
And the speeds that we got there were fairly low too, whereas you go over by the other school, you've got, almost 2,000 up there on the one side, and then the speeds are not horrible up there, but you got higher volumes. So that's kind of why. Now again, make the comment,
Yes, sir.
because we're not opposed to coming back and looking additionally, and we can also look at it as part of the after study as well.
And the second one, does the city see a conflict of interest between the WHCA and Greystar with regards to the letter agreement dated May 28, 2014, and the financial arrangement between Greystar and the WHCA with regards to taking care of Usner and Washington?
That we saw, that I got a copy of that today. Basically, that's an agreement between the two. We already had the devices. We didn't do any devices based on that agreement. That, as far as we know.
We didn't do any devices based on that agreement?
Based on the lobbying down there, like with the devices.
But you have the most devices.
That basically, what we did was working with the committee is where we came up with the devices on.
Well, yeah, but the committee is getting the money from Greystar.
It's your neighborhood that's getting the money from Greystar, not the committee. The neighborhood.
Going into the neighborhood.
But the committee
And
said.
frankly, it's not enough money to even pay for.
No, but the association signed this, and it said, Alon shall participate with the association requesting that the city install traffic impact devices at the corner of Usner and Watson and other intersections impacted by the property. So our association signed an agreement, and you said yourself, it seems like there's a lot of things in Watson. Well, the reason they seem to be lobbying you is because they signed an agreement.
Now, and again, that's something you gotta ask your homeowner association about. That my take on that is what they did was that they, and again, I wasn't involved in any of the negotiations, first time I saw it today. What I would imagine happened is that the apartments down there agreed not to object to this because the neighborhoods wanted it, and that they're trying to sit here and that we know that a lot of folks don't really want that development coming in. Well, it's coming in, and they're trying to be good neighbors is what they're doing. In other areas, they've sat there and they've built other things that they weren't required to, just trying to be friendly with the neighborhood. That I don't, again, I wasn't involved in the negotiations. I know that talking to Gary, that these devices were decided, so far as we know, without I can't imagine why the apartment complex would want to have some of that stuff there, to be quite honest. But they,
I can tell you. Wouldn't it be because all the southbound traffic, all of the devices is gonna really slow down the traffic to enable the Gray Star people to come in and out of that building? Instead of spreading them out evenly throughout the neighborhood.
Okay, we're trying to go back to that. Let me just tell you guys, I work with neighborhoods all the time. Prairie Home comes in, the neighborhoods try to say, hey, we gotta put these devices in. Can you help us fund some of these costs? Even the council office is doing using their service request funds, is going to developers saying, you're part of the neighborhood, help fund some of this. I had no idea what you guys were even talking about, so about paying all this. So, yes ma'am, let's go to this next one. I think we have about 5 minutes left.
My name is Ashley Hall, and I live on 740 East 8.5 Street, which is in one of the half-mile groups outside of the neighborhood. My concern is that I didn't know anything about any of this until just before the meeting. I got this kind of two-resident notice in the mail, and on the back was a map with no words at all. And I had to figure out where the streets were. And it was only because a friend that lives in Woodland Heights called me and said, I might need to be concerned about this, since I live like 50 feet from the intersection of Studewood and Balin. So I'm literally closer to some of the devices than many people. So my question is, how are you going to make sure that the people in the surrounding half mile, which goes about, I think, to Arlington, Columbia Street, and around, are properly informed about this? Because I don't feel like they were. When I put it on my next door, I eventually was shut down because I was harassed by so many people in Woodland Heights for just trying to inform people in the Houston Heights about this meeting. And so I need to know
what we do, the methodology we use, is we go to HCAD, Houston Harris County Appraisal District, and we get all of the addresses within that area. We send them all a flyer. Now,
but it wasn't an informative flyer. It says the map didn't say anything. There was no way to tell where even what the squares were.
There should be a legend on the map that says this was these.
No, there's no legend. There's no streets and no legend. That's all we got.
One that I created had a legend that said what they were.
All I'm saying is,
I'll talk to staff about clearing up the maps and stuff.
everyone appropriately. We don't get the newsletters. We don't get the other things. We try to do it the next real way, and we get shut down. I don't care. I think just informing others is very important.
I'll work with staff on making sure that the maps are readable and such. But the idea was to get a notice of the meeting out, what was required.
And it's the red and green incorporating those comments as well. It's the red
No.
and green incorporating the extra.
On this?
comments as well.
On this, yeah.
On your study, is
Yes.
the map bigger that you
Yes.
look at? Okay.
Yes. Then we don't even really stop necessarily at the half mile. If somebody's 3/4 of a mile, we mark it on the map.
Thank you.
Okay, we got to wrap this up. Let me get his, and then we'll get over here. We're about to get ran out of this room. He said we only had it till 8:30, so being nice.
Yes, my name's David. I'm on 608 Omar. I find that keep using the word problem, but I think that's very subjective. We didn't qualify for this plan based on speed, right? So you keep calling these speed cushions. How is it supposed to reduce volume? Also, it was also explained to me that you cannot determine what was cut through versus what wasn't. You can't determine that, so I don't know why you keep using the term cut through. What, if any, is there any indication that these streets aren't handling the volume that we have? Because Balin, Watson, and Pecor are my main ins and outs as all my neighbors are. I'm on those streets 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day to go where I need to go and back. I know neighbors go back and forth for lunch to their homes, using Watson, for example.
Okay,
So,
in general, to answer your question, speed cushions. If you've got speed cushions on these streets, a lot of people don't want to drive over them, and they'll avoid those streets. And that's kind of what I see is trying to happen here on Watson, is people
why
are trying
would
to
one avoid Vale and go to Highlands or Woodland?
Just slow down.
slow down. Yeah, well, the idea is not necessarily,
Avoid Vale.
you want to have an argument is what you want to have. I don't want to have the argument. What I want to do is I want to try and explain our reasoning. That we use the speed cushions in order to try and deter people from riding on those roadways. Okay? Then how do we tell the volume? The ordinance defines it. It says that basically we have 20% more volume than what we would anticipate on the street than there's cut-through traffic. You talked about, okay, you're in and out and each thing. But basically what the averages are across America and in Houston is that the average single-family home will generate 9.8 trips per day. That's in and out trips. I don't do that many in my house. So we must be accounting for your back and forth some addition as well. But on average, they say it's about 9.8 trips. So what we do is we sit here and we look at the street. We say we've got
2,200 households.
We've got a few more questions too, so let's quickly do this.
Right, we're looking at block by block type thing. So yes, there's a lot of different things that go into it. Anyway, that's kind of how we determine whether or not it's coming. Okay, so that's how we do this. Is it a perfect plan? No. That we have to limit the resources somewhat. We could actually sit here and take and put somebody at every single entry point and every single exit point and record every single license plate. We don't have the resources to do that, but that would tell us whether or not people are starting one end and coming out the other. We don't have the resources to do that. We use this instead. So that's how we go about doing this. Is the process perfect? No. But it's what we have to work with for our ordinance. And I think you had one final question. You asked about how do we determine cut through? Why do we use speed cushions or something?
Well, I mean, what's the indicator that, like, you got this 750 arbitrary number for the whole single ranch, Woodlands, and others by downtown?
And part of it was is that we intended for it to be 20% above and 750. Now the judgment comes into play. Because some of it is that, okay, I know what the other part of the question was, but basically, some of these streets, I mean, if you only got 750 cars a day, I mean, you start thinking about it. If they're saying that you've got one car every couple of minutes during your peak period, it's not a lot. I mean, it's more than some people would like, but it's not a lot. So that's where that came from. But in response to your question about, well, are they overtaxed? Well, from purely a traffic engineering standpoint, every single one of these two-lane streets has the capability of carrying 14,000 vehicles a day on it before it starts being over capacity. I don't think any of us really think that on a residential street we should be carrying 14,000 vehicles a day. So, in answer to your question, no. They're not being overtaxed from purely a capacity standpoint. But we also, the city doesn't think...
The plan, though, was volume.
Pardon?
That's why we qualified the plan was volume.
It had to do with trying to kill some of the cut-through volumes. And that there's no doubt whatsoever that there is cut-through traffic that happens on Watson. And that's how the neighborhood qualifies for volume.
See, she's about to throw us out. We gotta wrap this up. Okay, a few more questions here. Sorry, but she's about to kick us out.
Really quick question. Nat Smith on 3000 block of Morrison. I think I like traffic circles, but I'd like to practice. Do you have a map that shows some traffic circles like the ones that are going to go in here?
I can give you, we have two different locations. One of them, they're different what these will be. Streets will be constructed. And another one, they weren't built by us, by Harris County Flood Control. So you'll see two different ones. One of them is totally street reconstruction, the big traffic circles, the other ones are small ones on the right of way. But I can send that.
I think there's one more question.
Okay. Another question back here.
Yeah, I just have a question. I mean, it seems like one of the complaints is that the roads are crowded.
Last question, or let's...
So parents are concerned that, their kids, like maybe they want to ride a bike, they get by a speed car or something. One of the real issues is seems to be the sidewalks. I think the assumption is by many people, well, your kid ought to be on the sidewalk. There are places that don't have sidewalks, and sidewalks are in a state of general disrepair, and they're quite expensive to replace. And so I wonder if you could contextualize for us how we might address that as another means of ameliorating all of the traffic.
For sidewalks?
Yes, because pedestrian traffic is considered a concern, right, as it interacts with, well, cars. So,
And you're right, our sidewalks are bad. I was walking through the neighborhood trying to get to the
yeah,
restaurant.
the kids can't ride bikes. It's even hard for them to run. I mean, my kids are always falling.
So the
off their
question is
heads.
about sidewalks and improvement of sidewalks, you can answer that one. In general, most of these streets are not gonna qualify for our sidewalk program just because of the fact that, which is a spot, we just come out and build sidewalks. We do that on thoroughfares. We will do it at the request of schools in the immediate vicinity of the schools, that type of thing, but that's not gonna cover most of your streets. When we come through and we rebuild the street completely, then at that point, the city does push to try and put sidewalks in. That's our desire when we rebuild the streets. We found some neighborhoods where they sit here and say, we don't want sidewalks. And there, we kind of go back and forth, but it's our desire, when we rebuild a street, if we came back in here and rebuilt Euclid, we would build it with curb and gutter, a drainage system underneath it, and sidewalks, okay? That's how most of the sidewalks in the city get done, is when we rebuild the streets. That's being done now on a case-by-case basis, depending on the quality of the streets in comparison to other streets. As far as maintenance of sidewalks where they may exist, city ordinance basically says that the adjacent property owners are responsible for maintaining those sidewalks. As a result, there's no funding in the budget for the city to come through. If there's something that's particularly a hazard, we'll come in and remove the hazard, but we'll just fill it with gravel, we won't replace the concrete. We'll work with the Department of Neighborhoods to have them try and enforce that ordinance, but in general, they're not coming to people and saying, hey, you need to go out and rebuild the sidewalk in front of your house, because we understand that cost. So realistically, sidewalks are going to come in when the city rebuilds the roadways, and that's probably the first time. There's some isolated cases where there may be something in the interim, but in general, understand, but...
So realistically, the most cost-efficient way to allow kids to make use of the neighborhood is this program. What would you say? Weighed against improving all the sidewalks? Why not?
I'm not going to suggest that the streets are the proper place for children to play. We recognize, I mean, I played in the street when I was a kid. Matter of fact, my mom suggested it. You see what happens when your mom suggests you go out and play in traffic. You end up here. But we know kids will do it, but streets are really not where we want kids playing. You know, you ride your bicycle in the street legally. Again, I wouldn't want my small child to do it. But when I was a teenager...
Why are bicycles afforded the same rights as cars then? I mean, I'm an avid cyclist, and I run into this all the time. There's this notion that somehow you're intransigent because you're on a bicycle riding through the city.
You have the same
We have
rights.
terrible accidents all the time, and I think this is a real attitude issue, and part of that has to do with making it pedestrian friendly or friendly to people who want to be on bikes. And this is my concern.
Right. We're trying to do some of that, but unfortunately there are limited funds. And so, like I said, as we go through, we'll build sidewalks. As we do thoroughfares, we're putting a lot more bicycle facilities in. We're putting in sidewalks for those. But there are limits to what we can do.
So bicycle lanes would not be an option in any of these?
It would generally require us to rebuild the street. They're just not wide enough for bicycles.
Thank you.
And typically, to be honest, most of these types of streets are not, that there's not really a problem with riding your bike on them. You've got a few hundred cars a day, the speeds are relatively low. We probably, you know, you get out here on Studewood, probably got a different type of scenario where some people may be comfortable riding on the street, others are not going to be. But generally, a neighborhood street is going to be okay for bicycle riding. But again, I also understand, probably don't want to take my 6-year-old and put them out there on the bike by themselves. That I understand the issues with sidewalks, just where we're at financially right now. We have time for one more?
One more.
Is there any way to understand what the impact of these devices will be without testing it?
Not really. You know, we can make some guesses, but, you know, we've got human beings involved, and there's no telling what they're gonna do.
Okay, now clearly Director Weatherford, Gary, Kang, Maria, and Councilmember Cisneros were here on their own time and their own dime for our benefit, so I'd like everybody to thank them. And that said, I guess this meeting is adjourned. I'm sure Gary and Director Weatherford will say the most important thing over the next 2 weeks is by any means to get your comments back into
More
the
time as we can. If your neighbors aren't here, make sure you get home and tell them to make their comments.